the first thing to do is decide how we will represent a parse tree in Python. And I think we should just use the tree data abstraction that we already have, but we have to decide what goes into the labels. Well, the label of a phrase, which is a multi-word construction, can just be its tag. And then the branches can be all the subphrases or words within that phrase. And what is SQ anyway? Well, this stands for a sentence, which is a question, whereas VP stands for a verb phrase. And I described phrases as multi-word constructions, but they're not always multiple words. For example, this whole noun phrase is just one word, that. But the reason I called it a phrase is both because it has a tag that's a noun phrase tag, and because of the amount of structure in its branches. The way this system of constructing syntactic parse trees for natural language sentences works is that every word gets one tag called its part of speech tag, and that's from an inventory of tags which is just for labeling words. Determiners, adjectives, nouns won't appear higher up in the tree. They're always just labels for individual words. And then phrases can have any number, one or more, words or phrases within them. And this can be a mixture. So this question has a verb phrase and it has a word. Well, not really a word, it's just the question mark. But for convenience, we'll call it a word today. If you were taking a class on natural language processing, you wouldn't call it a word, you'd call it a token, which describes anything that's either a word or a punctuation mark or could otherwise appear in written language. But we'll call it a word. And a word always has some text, and it has the tag for that. We need to put that in some kind of tree structure using our tree data abstraction. We could make it a tree with one branch, but a simpler way is just to put both of these things in the label. So the label of a word, which is a leaf of this tree, contains both its tag and the text. So now we'll use our tree data abstraction. The labels will have everything we need to know. The labels of the leaves will have both tag and text. And the labels of the non-leaf nodes will just have the tag. And then they have branches where all the words live. Let's write some code. I've copied in our tree data abstraction and some utility functions like how to print a tree, how to get the leaves of the tree. And now we need to define a data abstraction for natural language syntax. A phrase, built out of a tag and some branches, is just a tree. And if we wanted, we could write new selectors for this about how to get out the subphrases, which gets the branches, but I'm going to try to not make things overly complicated. So we'll just say a phrase is the kind of thing that you can call branches on, because it's just a tree. But a word is different. A word comes with a tag and some text, and the way we'll represent this is as a leaf, where the tag and the text go together as part of the label. And there are no branches. How do you get the tag from some constituent, which is either a word or a phrase? Well, that depends on whether it's a word or a phrase. So we want one function that can get the tag of either a phrase or a word. Well, why don't we just inspect what kind of thing it is? If it's a leaf, that means it's a word. So where's the tag? It's the label of the tree, which gives me a list of two elements, and I want the tag at index 0. Otherwise, it was a phrase, at which point the tag was just the label of the tree. And if we don't want the tag, we want the text of some word. Text is something that only exists for a leaf. And where is the text hidden? Well, right where we put it, in the label at index 1. So what are we allowed to do? Build phrases, build words, get the tag for a word or phrase, return the tag of a constituent, word or phrase, and we can treat phrases and words as trees, meaning get their branches. I don't think it will make sense to get their labels. Instead, we'll just use tag and text to get that stuff, but we'll say it's okay to call branches on one of these phrases or words.